My father told me to be the bigger man after my best friend slept with my wife. So I shook everyone's hand, drove home, put my son to bed, and spent the next 8 months quietly, burning every bridge they thought I still needed. I work in wildfire management. I spend seasons reading terrain, tracking wind patterns, calculating how fast a fire will move and where it'll jump. You learn quickly that the most dangerous fires aren't the ones that roar. They're the ones that creep underground, invisible, until the ground collapses under you without warning. I should have recognized the signs. That's the part that still gets me sometimes. Late at night when my son is asleep and the house is quiet, I know how to read the landscape. I just wasn't looking at the right one. My dad called on a Thursday evening. Said there was a dinner Saturday. Family thing, he said. Important. My wife, Leanne, had been distracted all week. Said she'd been helping my parents get ready for the fall, some yard work, cleaning out the shed. She offered the explanation before I asked for it, which I noted and filed away without knowing why. Saturday, I brought our son Felix, because my mom specifically requested it. He's 5. He collects rocks. Obsessively. Had 3 in his jacket pocket when we arrived, and the first thing he did was line them up on my parents' coffee table, and introduce them to my mother like old friends. She laughed. It was the last natural sound in the room. My best friend Jonah. We'd known each other since we were 11 years old, played hockey together through high school, stood beside each other at both our weddings. Was sitting at the kitchen table when I walked in. He didn't stand up, didn't make eye contact, just turned his glass of water in slow circles on the tablecloth. My dad was at the head of the table, my mom beside him. Leanne sat across from where they were gesturing for me to sit. Nobody was smiling. Sit down, son. I sat. From the living room, Felix was telling my mother that the gray rock was named Gerald, and he was the oldest. My dad slid a piece of paper across the table. It was folded in thirds, like a letter. I opened it, a printed email chain, screenshots below it, photos, dates and timestamps I recognized. A work conference I'd been at in March, a weekend in July when I'd taken Felix camping, and Leanne had stayed home with a migraine. I read it twice, set it down, picked it up and read it a third time. My hands were completely still. That surprised me. You'd think something like this would make your hands shake. Mine just rested on the table like they'd forgotten what to do next. We thought it was better if we all talked about this together. My mum said. Her voice had that quality she does when she's managing a situation. Like I was a controlled burn that needed to be contained. I looked at Leanne. Her eyes were wet, but the rest of her face was composed, prepared. It wasn't planned, she said. It just happened. I looked at Jonah. He finally looked back at me. First time since I'd walked in. How long, I said. Not a question really, a measurement. He opened his mouth, closed it. Does the exact number matter, my dad said. It mattered. Nobody answered. These things are complicated, my mum said, reaching across the table like she might touch my arm. I shifted back without making it obvious. Leanne loves you. Jonah is family to us. This doesn't have to be the end of everything. My dad cleared his throat. You've always been the steady one. The one who figures things out. We need you to be that person right now. Think about Felix. Think about what it does to a kid. Watching his family come apart. Think about Felix. I thought about Felix. From the living room. Gerald is from the Ottawa River. He's very old, maybe 1 million. My mum laughed softly. Despite that sound, my son's total oblivious joy narrating rock history, landed somewhere in my chest like a stone dropped in still water. I stood up. Everyone went still. I think they were bracing for something loud. Something that would give them a shape to respond to, an emotion to manage, a version of me they could point to later and say he overreacted. He made it worse. He wasn't reasonable. I looked at each of them. My mum, Jonah, Leanne. Okay, I said. I walked into the living room. Felix was mid-sentence about Gerald's geological origins. I picked him up, rocks and all, grabbed his coat from the hook in the hallway. We're going, bud. But Gerald hasn't met Dad yet. Him. He can meet me in the car. Behind me, Leanne's voice. Where are you going? I didn't answer. I got Felix's coat on him in the doorway, took his hand and walked out into the October air. The street was quiet. A neighbor's dog was barking somewhere down the block. The maple tree at the edge of my parents' driveway had gone full red. Felix asked if we could stop for fries on the way home. I said yes. We stopped for fries. He ate in his car seat and told me everything he knew about sedimentary rock, which was frankly a lot. I made the right sounds, asked follow-up questions, watched the highway through the windshield and let my brain do what it does in the field. Assess, prioritize, plan. At home, I made him a bath, found his pajamas, read him 2 chapters of his current book. He wanted a third, but fell asleep halfway through the second. I carried him to bed, put Gerald and the other 2 rocks on his nightstand so they'd be there when he woke up. Then I went downstairs. I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop and a legal pad. Leanne's reading glasses were on the counter. Her coat was on the hook by the door. Her whole life was woven into this house like load-bearing structure, and I needed to figure out what came down with it and what could be saved. I opened our joint account. We had $61,400 in savings. Most of it mine. I'd been putting away consistently since before Felix was born. I transferred exactly half into my personal account, which I'd quietly kept active since before we were married. Clean. Time-stamped, documented. It was 11:22 p.m. I googled family law lawyer Ottawa and found a woman named Denise Hartwell. Her firm's website had a contact form that said responsize within 24 hours. I sent a message anyway. Explained the basics. She called at 7:48 the next morning. I got your message, she said. Tell me what you're working with, I told her. Evidence of the affair. Clear documentation. Felix's primary caregiver had been me since he was born. I'd arranged my fire season contracts around school schedules. Taken the overnight shifts. Coached his daycare's Little Movers soccer. Handled every doctor's appointment when Leanne's work schedule conflicted. That matters, she said. Primary caregiver status matters enormously in Ontario family law. Can you be in my office Monday? Yes, bring everything. Sunday, I dropped Felix at his friend Mateo's house for the afternoon. Told his parents I had some admin stuff to sort out. They didn't ask questions. I'd brought Felix there enough times to be trusted. I drove to my office. Sat at my desk for 4 hours. And documented everything I could remember with dates, times, and any supporting evidence I had access to. Printed the photos. Printed the bank statement showing my contributions versus Leanne's. Wrote out a timeline. Then I opened my work email. 3 months ago my director had forwarded me a posting. Senior Operations Lead, Provincial Office in Thunder Bay. More scope, more authority, better pay. I'd said I wasn't ready to uproot Felix from his school, his friends, his routines. I drafted a reply expressing renewed interest. Didn't send it, not yet. Monday morning, I was the first parent in the drop-off line at Felix's school. Kissed the top of his head. Told him I'd be there at pickup. He ran in without looking back, which meant he was happy. That's how you know with kids. The ones who are fine don't look back. By 10 that morning, I was sitting across from Denise Hartwell in her office on Laurier Avenue. She had the no-nonsense quality I've come to respect in experienced people. Direct, efficient, no wasted energy. Your position is strong, she said, spreading out the documents I'd brought. Primary caregiver is the most significant factor the court considers for children this age. If you can demonstrate consistency of care, and you clearly can, we file for primary residency immediately. The affair, while not a determining factor in custody itself under Ontario law, absolutely supports your character position and undermines any claim of family stability on her end. How fast can we move? I can file this week. You'll likely have an interim order within a month. Do it. I also asked about relocation. If you have a legitimate employment opportunity, and the court finds it's in the child's best interest, she said, relocation can be approved, especially if you've been the primary caregiver and the other parent's involvement has been inconsistent. I thanked her and walked out into a gray Ottawa morning that already felt lighter than any morning I'd had in months. That afternoon, I emailed my director about Thunder Bay. She replied within the hour. The original posting had been filled. But she was looking at expanding the Northern Operations team, and there was a senior field coordinator role being drafted. Similar scope, better title than the original. Would I be interested in a conversation? I said yes. We met Thursday. By Friday afternoon I had a formal offer. The salary increase was just over 30%. The role started in the new year, which gave me time. I picked Felix up from school that afternoon and took him to the Rideau Canal path. He rode his bike. I jogged beside him and answered his ongoing questions about whether rocks could feel temperature, whether Gerald had ever been in a flood, and whether Ottawa or Thunder Bay had more interesting rocks. Depends on the rock, I told him. Thunder Bay has some pretty serious geology. He considered this. Maybe we should check. Kids, I'm telling you. The week I was supposed to be processing and coming to my senses, I was meeting with lawyers, accepting a new job, and beginning to dismantle 12 years of a shared life with the same methodical care I used to build a firebreak. You start at the edges. You work inward. You don't rush. You don't panic. You just keep working. Leanne came back to the house on a Wednesday evening. She'd been staying at her sister's, I assumed. I heard her key in the lock and continued making dinner. She stopped in the kitchen doorway. You're home, she said. I live here. She came in slowly, like she was testing the temperature of the room. Her eyes moved over things. The bare spot on the bookshelf where I'd moved my books to the office. The empty hook where my winter jacket had been. We need to talk, she said. We do. I know you're hurt. She came into the kitchen, keeping space between us. But we have to think about Felix. About what this looks like for him. I'm not saying we have to pretend nothing happened. But there are ways through this that don't blow everything up. Divorce papers were filed on Monday, I said. You'll be served tomorrow. I've applied for primary residency. The color left her face in one clean wave. What? Primary residency. Interim orders should come within the month. My lawyer is thorough. You can't do that. Her voice went tight. I'm his mother, and I'm his primary caregiver. Have been since before he could walk. That's documented. She moved toward me. This is insane. You're blowing up our family because you're upset. I'm not upset. I meant it. Upset was a feeling you had when something surprised you. I wasn't surprised anymore. I made decisions because the situation required them. We can go to therapy. We can work through this. Her voice cracked at the edges, genuinely this time. I made a terrible mistake, I know that. But you don't just throw away 12 years. You made the same terrible mistake across at least 7 months. I kept my voice level. I counted the timestamps. She flinched. Where are you going to go? She said, shifting. You can't take Felix and just disappear. Thunder Bay. Work transfer, already confirmed. I'll be petitioning the court for relocation approval. Given Felix's caregiver history and my employment situation, Hartwell thinks it's straightforward. Thunder Bay. She repeated it like she was hearing a foreign language. You've been planning this the whole time. I've been working the problem. Her phone buzzed on the counter. She'd left it there when she came in. I glanced at it. Jonah's name on the screen. She saw me looking. He's been asking about you, she said. He feels terrible. That's not my concern. He's been your best friend for 25 years. He was. The phone buzzed again. I turned back to the stove. After another 20 minutes of variations on the same conversation. Tears, bargaining, one short burst of anger, more tears, she left. The door didn't slam. It closed quietly, which somehow felt worse. My parents called that evening. Both of them, on a video call, faces worried and close to the camera the way parents look when they don't know how to start. Son, my dad said. We heard from Leanne. You need to slow down. You're moving too fast. You said to think about Felix, I said. I did. That's what I've been doing. Taking him across the province isn't thinking about Felix. That's punishing everyone. I took a better job with more stability. That's a legitimate reason to relocate. The court will agree. This isn't about the court. My mom's voice strained. This is about your family, about Jonah, about giving people the chance to make things right. I gave everyone a chance. I said okay and I walked out of your house, and I gave everyone the week to do something different. Nobody called to apologize. Nobody showed up. Leanne went to her sister's. Jonah went quiet. You called to tell me to calm down. I let that sit for a second. I'm calm. This is what calm looks like. You're going to cut us out? My mom's voice broke. We didn't do anything wrong. You told me to be the bigger man. To swallow this so the family wouldn't have to feel uncomfortable. That's doing something. Silence. I'm not cutting you out, I said. But I'm not negotiating my decisions with you either. I need to go. Felix needs a bath. I hung up. Felix got his bath. I read him 3 chapters that night. Extra. Because I felt like it. He fell asleep holding Gerald. The relocation approval came through 6 weeks later. Jonah had tried once. A letter, handwritten, delivered through my mom, which told me he didn't have my address. I read it standing at the counter. It was long. It talked about our friendship. About how he'd watched me build a good life. And somewhere along the way had started wanting what I had. He said he wasn't making excuses. Then he spent 3 paragraphs making excuses. I put the letter in the recycling and washed my hands. We moved to Thunder Bay in January. I'd rented a house with a yard big enough for Felix to collect rocks from. Close to a school that had a strong outdoor education program. I'd researched it carefully. His new teacher, when I met her during registration, shook my hand and asked what his interests were. Geology mainly, I said. She lit up. We do a unit on the Canadian Shield in March. He'll love it. Felix started the following Monday. I dropped him at the front doors. He walked in without looking back. Good sign. The new job was genuinely demanding in ways I found satisfying. Bigger scope, more moving parts, a team that needed direction. I kept my head down for the first month, learned the rhythms, delivered what I said I would. My new director was precise and fair. In my 2nd month review she said, "You don't need me to manage you. That's rarer than it sounds." Hartwell called every 2 weeks with updates. I let most of them go to voicemail and called back during Felix's school hours. Leanne's lawyer is pushing for summer residency and a review of the relocation, she said in March. They're arguing Thunder Bay limits access. She hasn't requested a single file since we moved. I have the logs. I know. I've already submitted them. A pause. Your favorite kind of case, facts do the talking. Okay, counter the summer request with a graduated schedule. 2 weeks in July once she demonstrates consistent contact through the year first. She won't take it. She won't, Hartwell agreed. Filing it today. The court sided with me on primary residency. Leanne's request for summer custody was denied pending the contact requirement. She hadn't called. Hadn't visited. Her lawyer had sent paperwork. Leanne herself had been functionally absent. My parents emailed occasionally. My mom, mostly. Long messages that alternated between trying to explain Leanne's perspective and asking about Felix's adjustment. I replied briefly and factually. How Felix was doing, what he was learning. Photos of the yard, of him in his snow gear, of the rock collection, which had expanded significantly in Thunder Bay's geological paradise. I didn't engage with the parts about Leanne or Jonah. I just didn't respond to those sentences. After a while she stopped including them. Jonah went quiet after the letter. That made sense. There wasn't anything left to say, and I think he understood that eventually. Felix made a friend named Tobias within the first 2 weeks. Tobias's family had been in Thunder Bay for 3 generations, and his grandmother, apparently, had an extensive mineral collection. Felix came home from their first playdate vibrating with excitement. She has a piece of amethyst the size of my head, he told me, holding his hands apart to demonstrate. From right near here, she said we can come back and she'll show us where they find them. We'll set that up, I said. We went the following Saturday. Tobias's grandmother was 81, sharp as anything, and spent 2 hours, patient, showing Felix every specimen in her collection with the patience of someone who understood that some passions are serious. Felix was completely silent the entire time, which almost never happened. On the drive home he said, I think Thunder Bay might be the best place for rocks in the whole world. I think you might be right, I said. He looked out the window for a while. Is Mum going to visit? I'd practiced the answer. She's welcome to, we'll figure that out. Okay. He turned back to the window. Do you think Gerald has cousins here? Almost certainly. Spring came slowly, the way it does up north, but when it arrived it was real. The yard came back green. Felix started an outdoor rock garden along the fence line, organized by type, with hand-painted labels that were mostly phonetic but completely earnest. Tobias helped. I took a photo and looked at it for a long time. My director pulled me into her office in April. Regional operations manager is opening up, she said. Bait here. You'd oversee the full northern fin zone. I want to put your name forward. The salary she mentioned was more than I'd made in any 2 previous years combined. I thought about the joint account with $61,000 in it. About the child benefit I'd been putting directly into Felix's education savings plan every month since we'd moved. About the mortgage on the Thunder Bay house I'd been quietly working toward qualifying for. Yes, Sai said. Didn't think you'd need to think about it, she said, smiling slightly. I didn't. I got the role in May. Leanne's lawyer sent a modification request in June. She wanted to revisit the custody arrangement, given her alleged new stable living situation. Hartwell called me while I was in the field. She's moved in with someone, Hartwell said. New partner. Lawyer is arguing improved stability. How many video calls has she made to Felix since January? 3 in 6 months. Counter with our contact log. If the court wants to revisit primary residency, we'll be ready. But I'm not modifying a functional arrangement to accommodate her timeline. Already drafted, Hartwell said. Thought you'd say that. The modification was denied. That summer, Felix played on an outdoor soccer team. He was not, in any traditional sense, a natural athlete. But he played with the kind of absolute commitment that coaches love regardless of skill level. His team won exactly 1 game all season. Felix treated it like a championship. After that game, the one win in late August, 2-1 on a muddy Thursday evening, he ran toward me from the field with mud on both knees and his arms in the air. Dad, did you see? I saw. You were everywhere. He threw his arms around my waist. I picked him up, mud and all. Can we get poutine? Obviously. We got poutine from a place near the waterfront. He ate most of mine as well as his own, and told me his detailed tactical analysis of the game, which was thorough and largely fictional, but delivered with complete confidence. I listened to all of it. Walking back to the car, he took my hand without being asked, which he'd mostly stopped doing since he'd decided he was mature. I didn't say anything about it, just kept walking. There was a voicemail from my mum when I got home. She'd called while we were at dinner, said she and my dad were thinking of coming up to visit if I was open to it. Nothing urgent, just missed Felix. Missed me. I stood in the kitchen listening to it twice. I called back the next afternoon while Felix was at Tobias's. We could do Thanksgiving weekend, I said. Felix has the Monday off school. He's been wanting to show someone his rock garden. My mum didn't say anything for a second. Then, we'll book the flights. They came. It was careful at first, the particular carefulness of people who've had a significant conversation without having it yet. My dad helped Felix build a proper wooden label for the rock garden. My mum made her lentil soup in my kitchen, like she'd always known where everything was. On the Saturday evening, after Felix was in bed, my dad and I sat on the back porch with coffee, and said the things that needed saying. Not everything. Some of it didn't need words. But he said he should have handled the dinner differently. That he'd been more focused on keeping things together than on what was actually right. That he's understood why I'd walked out. I said I wasn't interested in going backward. That the only direction that worked for me now was forward. He said that was fair. We sat there for another hour without talking much. Eventually, my mum came out with a blanket for her shoulders and sat in the third chair. And the 3 of us watched the northern Ontario sky go dark and stars come out in a quantity that still surprised me, after almost a year of living under them. Hartwell's final email came in November. Leanne's lawyer has withdrawn all pending motions. She's signing the final consent order as filed. No modifications, no appeals. Case closed. I read it at my desk during my lunch break. Felix was in school learning about the Canadian Shield. Tobias's grandmother had already promised to take them both out to the amethyst site in spring. The rock garden had been covered with a tarp for winter. But Felix had documented every specimen in a notebook first with drawings and descriptions. My house was mine in every way that counted. My job was the best I'd ever had. My kid was happy in the particular, uncomplicated way that children are when their world makes sense to them. I saved Hartwell's email, closed my laptop, and went back to work. December. Felix asked me what we were going to do for Christmas. I said we'd get a tree, invite Tobias's family, make my grandmother's butter tarts, and maybe video call Grandma and Grandpa in Ottawa. Can we get a real tree? One from outside. There's a farm about 20 minutes out. We can cut one ourselves. His face. I wish I could describe his face. We went the following Saturday. He took the saw more seriously than any 5-year-old should be allowed to. But supervised carefully, he made the first cut, and then I finished it. And we dragged the tree back to the car with pine needles in our hair. On the drive home he said, "This is the best place we've ever lived." I didn't answer right away. I was thinking about the house we'd left. The backyard where I'd built a compost bin. The neighbors whose names I still knew. 11 years in one place, and then one piece of paper on a table and the whole foundation showed what it was made of. "Yeah," I said. "I think you're right." He fell asleep in the back seat before we got home. I carried him inside, tree leaning against the porch railing, and stood in the kitchen for a minute in the quiet. They'd wanted me to absorb it. To be steady and reasonable and bigger than what had been done to me, so they could stop feeling the weight of it. I understood the impulse. I'd spent most of my life being the reliable one. The one who made problems easier for everyone else. I chose differently this time. Not because I wanted to burn anything down. Because I finally understood that you can't build something solid on a foundation that's already failed. You have to start from ground that can hold weight. I went back out and got the tree.